Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to go back. We're going to talk about some history, why things were done, how things were done in Milford when it was being built from a small town. It's always amazing as I listen to the stories, and you learn so much about why certain decisions were made. You know, things like, how did central office get into the high school? You know, and when you have people who were back there who had influence on the decisions, it's always interesting how much you can learn. But let's start out with introductions. Louis?
Lou Bertnazzi, former Senate Majority Leader.
Former everything. Former
Selectman, former rep. Yeah. Yeah.
Carl DiGregorio, former chair of Milford School Committee and Milford Democratic Town Committee.
So we're right in the middle of the most interesting election I've ever seen. I mean, you guys go back further than me, but I don't know that I've ever been in a situation where I didn't have a clear-cut decision, and I see too many other people sitting there saying, within the margin of error, I'm not quite sure which way to go. You want to tell us your opinion?
I'm not sure if it's the most interesting, but I know it's the most bizarre. There's no question. After watching that, after watching the whole thing over the last year and a half or so, and the debate the other night, it truly is bizarre. It's like no other election has ever been. The same standards that were held by individuals who ran for office in the past are by the wayside. They're long gone. There's a whole different set of standards, if there are any at all. It's really, there are times, as a matter of fact, when it shames us as a popular democracy to say that this is the best we have. This is the best that we can bring forth to run our country. We have a friend who moved back to Brazil about 2 years ago, and she called the other day and said, you know, we watched that debate, a whole bunch of people, they said, a magnificent country like the United States, and this is what you have? This is what you do? It's terrible.
And that's my problem. I want to look up to my CEO, you know, to the head of the country. I want to have pride in introducing that person. And today, with the two choices, I don't know that I have that. I mean, Carl, you'll have a different opinion, I know.
I do.
But let me give you time.
I think the debate was a turning point for Hillary Clinton. She doubled her lead in Nate Silver's 538 flag the next day, from 5 to 10 points. He did that with a caveat that they use one model for this particular thing, but that it would probably take a week to sift out the outliers from the regular polls and see where the bounce is and whether it's going to last or whatever. But I have no trouble with Hillary Clinton being president, and obviously I have trouble with Donald Trump. But I've read the Wall Street Journal's commentary and Fox News. They think the debate was a draw. NBC, MSNBC, CNN, Boston Globe said that Hillary Clinton is a clear winner. It depends really whose ox is gored. It always is. Joe Stein in Time magazine had an interview with people in the part of Ohio that borders Appalachia. They are with Trump 100%. They're the true believers because, as they see it, Hillary Clinton wants to take away their livelihood. He wants to close down coal mines.
You threaten my
energy.
job,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a hard time being objective.
Yeah. And on the other hand, if you read, the middle class income has gone up over 5% this past year, the first time it's happened in decades. So they're getting left out, and that's the string that Trump is plucking, and it keeps resonating with these people, that it's about them and their job and how much money they're making, and the rest of the country is doing okay, but they're being left behind. Question is that a majority of people.
But Carl, help me understand, how can I trust her to lead me? I'm really struggling. I'm not a true Trump believer. I'm not a true anti. It's not anybody but Trump. I have my real issues with him. But with her, I got a trust problem.
Well, she's said she's made mistakes, and she's apologized for it. As far as I know, none of those mistakes have been fatal errors. She's had the FBI look at her, go through, I'm assuming you're talking about the email thing, which is
No,
one
I'm talking
thing.
in general. The one thing that Trump said that resonated with me is he said Hillary Clinton and the Clinton family, their life has been chronicled by one scandal after another. And every time I think back, if it's not the email, I mean, something as silly as I got pneumonia. What? Why is Bill Clinton out there saying she didn't? Why didn't she just get up and say, you know, by the way, I'm human. I'm shaking hands with 9 gazillion people a day. I got pneumonia.
True.
Yeah, it's such, to me, a nothing. You know, but I got a hard time because I listened to Bill Clinton when they asked him if she's president, this was back when, will you continue to do the $500,000 seminars? And he said, yes, I have to pay the bills. Family that's raised $200 million in a few years. You can't live with that money. And then when he said, but it doesn't matter, because I asked Hillary if me accepting, you know, these $500,000 seminars has any influence on her, and she said no. I felt like he's insulting my intelligence.
Well, you know, when you look back at Hillary Clinton and the times when Vince Foster was in the news and Whitewater was in the news, and these pseudo events were run through the mill, nothing happened, drop. You go on to the next one, go on to the next one, go on to. Doesn't matter that the FBI gave her a clean bill of health. They're going to keep pumping that and pumping that.
But did they, Carl? I mean, they
But
said criminal charges.
My point is that she has made mistakes. But on balance, when you compare what Hillary Clinton has been accused of or done versus what Donald Trump has done, and we're talking about insulting almost every ally we have, I mean,
Yeah, but
I'm sure everyone
I'm
knows
gonna
the
beg
litany.
you.
I could go on the rest of the
Stay
half hour.
on
but-
Hillary for a while, because we can talk about Trump. And, I mean, the first problem I had with him is when I watched him next to Jeb Bush, and I'm not a Bush fan, but as Bush is talking, he's making funny faces. You know, like a kid in the schoolyard. And the image that came to my mind was, if he's at a G20 summit, standing next to Putin, standing next to world leaders, and he's doing this funny thing with his face, I'm not going to be very proud.
He told the world that Putin would never take Crimea. Don't worry about it. He's never going to happen. He told George Stephanopoulos, because I happen to be watching that interview. Never going to happen. Don't worry about a thing. Now you realize, here's a guy who has invited Putin to hack into emails in the country. Forget, that's, when you don't know what the nuclear triad is, when you have to ask, do we have nuclear weapons that we can use, and why don't we use them? Something's wrong. He is singularly unfit to be president of the United States.
So is this,
that clear enough?
he sucks and I suck less, so vote for me?
No.
Because that's what I'm feeling. Like I'm going to
He
walk
sucks,
into the
and
booth.
some people object to Hillary.
Okay, because I'm feeling I'm going to walk in a booth holding my nose.
There's no comparison.
Oh,
I mean, I could be politically correct and all that, but there just is no comparison.
Lou?
Actually, It's an interesting thing to analyze what Donald Trump's magnetic appeal is to so many people. Number one, he's an entertainer. He understands the entertainment business. He understands television. He understands that people watch television and watch programs, watch entertainment, looking for surprises at the next
I'm one of
around the
those,
next
if I watch
corner.
TV, I want to put my mind in neutral.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
worked all day.
That's right.
I'm putting my mind in neutral, and I want to be entertained.
And the more surprises you have, the more entertained you are. The Alfred Hitchcock thing, there was a surprise all the time, and people were waiting for it. That's exactly what he does. And people wait for that next thing. And the more outrageous it is, the more entertaining it is. The other thing is that he knows that on television, people watch 1-hour programs. They can watch a whole war and see who won why and how. They can watch murders investigated and solved within 30 minutes. We're all used to easy answers. Easy, quick responses and answers to very complex problems. Consequently, what he has done in all this time is he's appealed to those two things. He doesn't bother with thinking out or trying to figure out what the complex answers to complex issues are. He gives you a quick answer, which is what people want. They want that simple answer, that quick answer. So if they get it from him, they say, he talks like I do. He knows, he understands the way I do. I can come up with an answer to all these problems that they have on the national and the international level. Consequently, as that goes on, people begin to identify more and more with him, but they're not realizing that they're not getting answers to complex questions. When they hear others, as they heard in the Republican debates, when they hear others try to give more complex responses, they say, oh, just as another political answer, which is what he'll say. Oh, another political talk. So he's got all the key words, all the key expressions that push people's buttons, and they kind of then think, well, he knows what he's talking about. Actually, though, that kind of approach can only go so long, and then people begin to look for a little bit more. And as they hear a lie or they hear something said that wasn't true, and he just bypasses it and goes on to the next thing, they begin to take notice. What we're seeing, I think, now is the beginning of a kind of an awareness on the minds of people that his behavior has reached the point where he's becoming more and more of less and less. And that's when it will
You would
come
be
to
hard-pressed to criticize Trump's policies.
He doesn't have any.
That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
Realistically,
That's right.
you would be
That's right.
hard-pressed
That's right.
And
to
that's
say
why-
his policies
Yes,
won't work.
that's
'Cause
right.
You sit there and say, what policies?
Exactly.
But we had this debate when we had your counterparts, the less liberal Eddie and crew, and I said, you know, when you talk about a safe candidate, Hillary's definitely the safest candidate. I believe that if she wins, 4 or 8 years from now, we'll be sitting here with an economy that's miserable, just like it's been for 8 years, with more regulations that are killing people like me in a small business.
Is that
and-
you or Eddie talking now?
No, that's me.
Oh, okay.
Because
Okay.
I think she will continue Obama's policies,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling the weight of all these new regulations,
Yeah.
okay? I don't think she'll change anything. It seems like for the last 8 years, I mean, thank God we're seeing an uptick now
Economy's in a little better shape now than it was 8 years ago when he
Agreed.
came in after George W. Bush.
But Louis, that was a decade ago. He's had 8 years.
That's right.
And he hasn't,
And-
the economy's been growing what, 1%?
2.
2. Okay, 2 whole percent?
Not enough. It's growing. It wasn't growing when he came in. It was
That I
falling.
agree. So,
Yeah.
the problem I have fundamentally is I believe and I think Hillary Milhouse Clinton, because she's behaving just like Dr. Richard Milhouse himself, that she portrays.
Who was a Republican? by the
Who,
way.
absolutely. I don't think anybody would call Nixon a Democrat.
No, that's right.
Right? But she comes across to me as somebody who believes she's above the law. And I'm really having a hard time rationalizing it. Yeah.
I think for me, some of my best friends are Republicans, and we talk about it all the time, Eddie included. I mean, our breakfasts are something to behold. The Republicans I know are loyal opposition. They're thoughtful, they're factual, they're intelligent, and that's not Donald Trump. The problem is Donald Trump is not a Republican. Donald Trump is a ship looking for a port, and he found one. He's had enough Republicans of tested metal abandon him and look for someone else that there should be warning flags all over the place. The only people who are staying with him are people like Ryan, who have something to lose and something to gain. The rest of them want the grand old party to stay as loyal opposition. That means the party is a unit, not the beginning to really stretch it, of fascism. I'm the only one who can do it. So the people gravitate toward him, not the party, toward his solutions, which are no solutions at all. They're gauzy word pictures. He tells stories. He never says anything of substance. And when he does, most of the time he misspeaks it. He lies, he fabricates, and he doesn't apologize. Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
We've got to be careful when we accuse him of lying, because I think most of the country would say, who wins the lying contest?
Oh,
Oh, I don't
I
think
mean,
there's
this-
any question
There
there.
are people who keep score on the internet. It's way up.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
that's...
But yet,
It's almost 10 to
she-
1.
Hillary Clinton has a much higher disapproval rating, and most of it is trust.
Well, those ratings bounce.
No, I understand, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is,
But the
I
lie is
talk
out
to
there
both
forever.
sides, and one says she's the biggest liar the country's ever known. No, he's the biggest liar, and it's they're saying
That's
they both.
campaign talk. If you look at the kinds of things that she's being accused of, it's all coming out of the campaign. It's really not that she is a terrible person. I mean, if we were to have said these same things about her a year and a half ago before she ran, you wouldn't hear the same kinds of comments. That's political talk. The Republicans have done very well by doing a job just like that on Obama. You talked about Obama. Obama, when he came in, the Republicans made it very clear. The leadership said he will not get a second term. We will not allow him to get a second term. They have not allowed anything that he has been offering to pass. The one thing that did, they've done everything they can to destroy it now. So really, when you look at the comparison of the two, I mean, that was like when he said the other night that he's got a much better temperament. I mean,
Lord.
I thought that was the perfect time for her. She's got this loud laugh. I thought that would
Well,
have been
she
the
did. She broke
purpose
into
time.
the
She didn't
giggle.
laugh, or she should have laughed.
But she broke into that
Yeah,
motion.
the whole audience did. Anybody who heard it did, because they know that is
You
ridiculous.
think that temperament's real?
His
Hey,
temperament?
I'll give him one thing.
Yeah.
Brilliant at running a presidential campaign on everybody else's money. If you think about how much money he spent.
That's the entertainment.
Well, that's
He's
what I'm
an
saying.
entertainer.
The man is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's an
Because-
interesting point.
He
That's an
said,
interesting
I'm
point.
going to self-fund. And at one point he had spent, I mean, to me, to us, being from Milford, $10 million is a ton of money. Dang, they spend that on a senator's campaign.
Yeah.
You know, here the guy gets all the way to the Republican convention, and how much has he really spent?
Because every TV program has had him on as a guest.
Right.
The next ridiculous thing or absurd
gonna
thing
build
he
a
says,
wall.
they bring him on. The
You know, I'm
wall.
going to build a wall. And I mean, some of the stuff,
Right.
I could really support him if it wasn't so silly. If he had come out and said, I am going to fight any immigration into this country that we cannot vet the immigrants, I could support that.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
could. Now, we know that means Syria and that, but if I can't vet them, if I can't make sure that they're not coming to Milford to be a threat to our kids, yeah, don't let them in.
How do you do that?
Well, but that's the point.
Yeah.
Now, but you turn around and say, you can't vet them. So, but why would you say all Muslims, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I remember back in the 60s when they said, you can't let a Catholic be president.
Yep.
The Pope will
Yep.
be moved. And we got
That's right.
offended to
That's
say,
right.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're painting all of us.
Yeah.
And if you don't like Kennedy, you don't like Kennedy. But don't paint him as a Catholic. And I got the same problem with Trump saying, all Muslims, bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not an all Muslim. It's like saying all Catholics.
Donald Trump made his mark with the birther lie fabricated out of thin air, out of whole cloth. Then he went to his signature remarks on being a businessman and self-funding his campaign. I think history has shown that he's a poor businessman, and he is far from self-funding his
Wait a minute.
campaign.
The guy's worth, let's say,
The guy is
You don't know what he's worth.
Let's say he's
he
not worth
won't
10 billion.
release his
no, he
taxes.
said $10 billion.
let's say it's nonsense. He's only worth $3 billion.
No,
Well,
you
you don't
can't
have
say
to
what
say
he's
that.
only worth because you don't know. Because he won't let anybody know what he has or what he doesn't have, what he's contributed to, what he hasn't contributed to. See, you're there making an allowance by saying that. You don't know. Every presidential candidate for 40 years has released their
I think his talk
income
where he
tax
said,
records.
if I didn't pay any taxes, that makes me smart. Again, the way he said it is annoying.
It's not only annoying, if he had Warren Buffett next to him, it would be more than annoying, because Warren Buffett has put together a whole cadre of billionaires who are saying, we're not paying enough taxes, and this is what we're going to do about it. You've got the Melinda Gates and Bill Gates Foundation giving away billions.
See, and
You've got
there,
the
now
Facebook-
Zuckerberg's are kicking in. But you see,
Donald Trump's problem is that he said, I'm very philanthropic. I'm worth $10 billion. Neither of those is true.
No.
The Economist and Forbes has said, tops he's worth 4, 3.5. He had an interview with Anderson
Carl,
Cooper.
how many of your friends are worth a measly $1
Doesn't
billion?
matter. None of my friends are running for president. But
And
when
none
you
of
run
them
for
started with
president and you
$14
say
million
that,
to begin with.
Anderson Cooper asked him, you said you were going to self-fund your campaign because you're such a good businessman. He said, that's true. And Anderson Cooper said, but you're not doing that. He said, yes, I am. And Anderson Cooper said, no, you're not. And he said, yes, I am. And Anderson Cooper finally said, you've raised $7 million online. Well, that's not true. He said, I'll show you your website. Says, and he did. He said, that's not much money. $7 million is a lot of money.
You know,
to me.
again, but I'm amazed that he got as far as he did on so little money.
No question.
And
No
it's got to be the entertainment factor.
Yeah,
That's right.
Because
You're right.
no other candidate
That's right.
I've ever seen
Yep.
has not used the machine, whether
That's
it's
right.
blue or red.
They couldn't.
They
couldn't.
can't.
Even if they had the money, they couldn't.
But even if you say he has the money, you know, he made the
Yep.
statement he made $600 million last year. Whether it's true or not, maybe he only made 200 or 300 paltry
No,
million.
he's making money. It so happens that he once said that he was the largest landowner in New York, and he could have been, but he blew the biggest deal of his life, the Penn Central Rail Yard. There are buildings there that have Trump on them. He doesn't own them.
No.
But he
But he's not a poor man. He's done okay.
is not.
Yeah.
You know, and I turn
not.
around, if he had looked at Hillary square in the eye and said, yep, I paid no taxes. And it's because of people like you, the politicians who have put these loopholes in. And he looked at the audience. If he had looked and said, how many of you would not take a legal tax deduction?
Well,
Again.
how do we know he has taken legal and not illegal? That's part of the problem. And how do we know that money coming from, let's say, Russia and other overseas things, no one knows because he won't release his tax
And
But
a
we got
man
to
who
be careful there
cares-
because
And why
you
won't he
hear
release his tax
200 million from Saudi Arabia going to the Clinton Foundation. I mean, Carl, there's too many coincidence, little coinky-dinkies that people paid money to the Clinton Foundation and then all of a sudden she flies over to Switzerland to lobby for Wells Fargo.
How anyone can even bring that up in the face of Trump refusing to talk at all about it is absurd. I mean, we're talking one set of circumstances and what you're holding somebody responsible for up here, and a whole different one for what you're holding him responsible for
No,
down
I guess
here.
what I'm thinking of is
There are only two people running,
if
you
he's
know.
doing something
It's only the two
illegal,
of them that you're
the
going to vote
IRS
against.
should go after him. Plain and simple. If they show he did something illegal, they should go after him.
As far as I know, they are. I mean,
Well, they're auditing him. Okay, what does that mean?
It means we don't know.
And when he
we
said
don't
he's
know
been
what-
audited every year for so many years,
that would be unusual.
that, you know, I mean, if you got audited and they found a clean or a semi-clean, you know, you made a couple mistakes here, okay. And you get audited again, okay. They have to find something if they're going back every single year.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, candidly, I don't know why his tax returns, he's letting it be an issue. If he paid no taxes and he took the position and said, Hillary, it's you and the cronies that gave me these loopholes. They're legal, I'm taking them.
That means it's got to be pretty serious, a pretty serious reason as to why he won't release his taxes.
And to
That's
me, that
exactly
seems
what
simple.
you're saying. That's true. It would be very simple, but it's not, because he won't release it because there's obviously something more than what we know.
And he threw out if she releases her 33,000 emails, which we know are gone. But again, it makes me feel hinky. I want to trust my CEO, my president. I mean, I don't know that you or I do know, I'm being catty. If I got a congressional subpoena that said, don't do this, and I said, stuff it up your nose, I'm doing it anyway, I don't think we'd be having this discussion without me in pretty pajamas and getting room and board on the state. Yet, all of her raids, and they destroyed all this email. Why would she do that?
But we also know that others have done it in
Oh, yeah.
the same position that she was
Not
in.
as blatant, but
No,
yes.
but it was done. So why aren't we talking about them? We're only talking about her because it's a campaign-raised issue, not because it reaches
Well,
the
you think
same
so?
level. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Why would they have investigation after investigation of Benghazi?
Oh, that I understand.
If it weren't for the fact that she's a candidate? That's the only reason. And the same thing
do
here.
you know what hits
when
me
the
with
when the
Benghazi?
campaign is over, it goes away.
What hits me with Benghazi is her statement, what difference does it make? It sent such shivers down my spine. You know, whether it's not, I mean, I can tell you what, I would have made better decisions as long as you let me make them after Benghazi is done and I can go back and
Yeah.
sit through. You know, it's like,
Yep.
you don't think I can make better decisions than Belichick on every play?
Yeah.
Let me do it on Tuesday morning. Right?
Yeah.
And then I can go back and nitpick him because I know the data. So the Benghazi thing live doesn't bother me as much as what I felt was an attitude like, I'm above this. And it just bothers me.
But before we leave it alone, can we agree that Benghazi was contrived by the Republicans to affect Hillary Clinton's popularity and poll numbers?
I don't know their motivation, but
Well,
I'll
can-
say that realistically, it got press.
McCarthy would be Speaker of the House today if he didn't open his mouth to the press and tell them This is why I did it.
Right.
Goodbye, McCarthy.
I thought McCarthy died from
No,
Wisconsin.
he's still there.
That's another one.
So now we have
I think
Paul
of that
Ryan.
McCarthy more.
But anyway.
Yeah. No, and again,
And I thought the best ad for Hillary Clinton, the best, was 11 hours in front of the Select
Yep.
Benghazi Committee, where she just sliced and diced that committee 17 different ways without breaking a sweat, had them pulling their tie, falling over
again,
their drinks, and
I
got
had,
nothing.
I
And
had
got
less
nothing.
issue. It's like
Got
when the
nothing.
head of the FBI gets up and said she did nothing criminally wrong, but she showed very poor decisions. You know,
As did others before her.
Sloppy.
Right.
You know, and again, I will be one that says, I truly believe to this day if Richard Milhous had gotten up in front of the American public and said, I blew it, I was wrong, please forgive me. Americans don't kick people when they're down.
That's true.
But he put himself
Yeah.
above. He gave an attitude that the laws didn't apply to him. And I just can't get over that because I just feel the same way. On the other hand, when I look at Trump, do you really think he can pull off some of the things he's saying? Isn't that why we have 3 arms of government?
That's the whole point, you know. He doesn't have to say how he's going to do anything. He just says, I'll get it done. Believe me, I'll get it
Well,
done.
it'll be
People do.
beautiful.
I am the only one. And people are used to quick answers to things. He can do it, he'll do it. He's convinced them thus far, but it's going away. That when he says these things, even though many of them later come back to haunt him, he just pushes it aside. He doesn't have to. He's the ultimate entertainer, and it's worked for him so far, but it's beginning now. That can only go so long. And then eventually, and
Well,
now it's starting
And I
to
think a
go right
lot of it
downhill.
is people aren't happy with what they see. You know, when I see our president go abroad and apologize for me being lazy, I'm sorry. That dog doesn't hunt. You're my leader. Don't stand up in front of other countries and apologize for me. It bothers me. And I think a lot of people don't like what they've seen for 8 years. We can talk about the economy, but it's not been exciting. You can talk about jobs, but it just hasn't been what we want.
Obama's got a better rating than either of the two right now.
Well, yeah, the last uptick.
So apparently people aren't as disgusted with him as you're saying.
Then how do you explain half the country voting for Trump? Are they really voting for Trump?
The
or are they
only
voting
half that's
against?
voted for him so far are Republicans.
It's not half of the country is a Republican.
No, it's not. But you're saying half. The only people who have put Trump in the position that he's in now are Republicans. They voted for him. No Democrats, no independents have voted for him. They were all primaries.
No, but somebody is saying they're going to because, I mean, John Fernandez explained it to me where he said, Al, there's 40% left, 40% right. We fight for the 20% in the middle.
Yeah.
Because there's certain people, you think you're ever going to get him to vote for a Republican? His hand would tremble, right?
Yeah.
But both sides have that. You're fighting for the 20% in the middle. So he says when he wins at 10%, you know, how do I put this? When he wins 10% above the other candidate, it's really like 2 to 1, because he's getting half of that 20% in the middle. And that's why I wonder, you know, in Massachusetts, I think we're jaundiced. I know it'll drive you crazy, but I have a hard time telling the difference between a liberal Republican and a conservative Democrat in Massachusetts.
And don't forget, they're outnumbered by the unenrolled, the
Well,
undeclared.
Yeah, but a lot of unenrolled are people like me, who, if you want to vote in a primary,
Yeah.
then if you go one party or the other, and of course, I don't understand why Massachusetts uses opposite colors. You go and say, I want a red ballot, and it's a Democratic ballot, and a blue one.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of the country talks about the red states, all the square states being red.
Yeah.
But when you go to the square states and you look at a Republican, boy, you can tell a difference.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can in Massachusetts. Not the Carls, not
No.
the Eddies, but that
Yeah.
20% in the middle. I don't know that they really could say they vote Democrat all the time or Republican.
No, I think that's true. It shows in the fact that we have varied in terms of governors that we've elected, both Democrats and Republicans in a very Democratic state. So I think that's true. But the people that they know best, that is the people who are closest to them, that they know personally, their representatives and their senators have been Democrats. And that shows that they basically would be Democrats long before
even
they
in
be
our little
Republicans.
banana republic here, the
Yeah.
banana
Yeah.
district, we elect Republicans.
We didn't used to. When I was in the Senate in this district, I had 5 of 6 reps in my district who are all Democrats. That's a new thing.
When you were in the
Hopefully
Senate, there
we'll
were
turn it around.
12 registered Republicans in Massachusetts.
But you still had Republican governors.
Yeah, we had
And
Republican
that's why I
governors.
say,
For
Yep.
years.
for me,
Yeah,
I'm actually proud of the demographic in Massachusetts, that it's not dogma.
yeah.
That they can look
Yeah.
and elect a Republican because they believe he or she will be better than a Democrat, or vice versa. And you don't see that in a lot of
I'll
parts
tell you,
of
in
the
all the
country.
years that I was in both the House and the Senate, whether it was a Democrat or a Republican who was governor, we worked together. It's not like it is at the national level now. It's not like the Republicans have made it since Obama has been elected.
That almost seems personal.
That's right.
It
They've
no
done
longer
it.
seems programmatic. It's like, I lost count after 45 votes to kill Obamacare. Now, it's going to crumble part of it under its own weight because you can't afford to run it. So
It will be amended the way it should have been from the beginning and the way it was intended. However, the Republicans will not amend it. They just want to kill it.
but they don't have.
And then what
Do
you
you
have,
believe that?
you know how many people are now able to have health care that weren't
That's what I'm
able
saying.
to
Do you
before
really-
that?
Do you really believe that we will vote to take away medical care from people?
I hope not. I hope not.
48 tries says even
think
the
so.
Senate and the House can't.
I don't think so. Even the Constitution needed amending. This Affordable Care Act is going to be amended, and as time goes on, it will be,
Yep.
if not the same thing as Medicare, close to it.
Yes.
With some tweaking. And
again-
you know better than anyone.
The way it was sold, I had a problem with it because President Obama told my daughter, you can keep your health plan. I would have had more respect if he got up and said, listen, you youngsters are going to pay more than your fair share today because you're going to get old. And when you get old, you're not going to be able to afford to pay what it takes to maintain you. So you're paying ahead, kind of like Social Security.
That's right. Somebody's going to have to pay as it goes along. We're going to have to get more and more healthy people into it in order to help to pay for those people who are
And
not
to
healthy.
me, everybody.
It really isn't much different. I'm going ahead a little bit. From the companies who the private insurers who told you years ago that if you were an elderly person and you had some means and you wanted to protect it, you should get long-term
Oh,
care.
the long-term care
now.
insurance?
Now you should get it.
Yeah.
And now, even with a commissioner of insurance,
Yeah.
you're seeing increases that are doubling
Oh,
premiums,
God.
tripling premiums, and everyone is going back to the drawing board and saying, "Can I
29 years
afford
ago, my
this?"
dad passed
That's
away.
not going to be amended.
Right? He, 8 years before that, retired, and General Motors said you can either have your full pension, it's like $500,
Yeah.
or you'll get $300 for the $500 goes away when you die. If you take the lower pension of 3-something, it goes away when you and your wife die.
Huh.
He took the lower pension.
Yeah.
He had no clue that the pension meant nothing, but it came with total health care. So for 29 years after he died, General Motors has been taking care of my mother's medical needs. I mean, that's unbelievable. You
Yep.
could never think,
That's right.
back 10, 15 years ago, what it would cost.
I did it for a living for 40 years. Everything is too expensive. I read Brill's Time magazine expose on Checkmaster and hospital costs. Everything is too expensive. It's just off the wall. But when you start to try to right some of these wrongs, it is just not as easy as Donald Trump would have you believe. You can get Big Pharma to roll back some prices. Go ahead and try it.
Right.
See how long that lasts.
Well-
Everyone has their champions. Everyone protects his own fiefdom. And democracy and negotiation is what finally gets
Well, what's
something done.
To this day, I still believe nobody, when they say, turn back those kids, don't let them in the country.
Yeah.
Okay, go stand on the border. I want to see you standing there and have a young kid come to
exactly.
you and say, "Mister, please help me," and you're going to kick the girl. Come on. Or Jeff Hopkins over at the medical center. A sick child, a sick mother, father shows up at the emergency room. He'll never turn him away.
That's right.
So to me, this whole Obamacare issue was, do we wait till people are chronically ill to give them medical care, or do we take care of them from the beginning? And I think it will get amended because the insurance companies are voting. United bailed out of Obamacare. Why? Because they lost $450 million.
Yeah.
Make it profitable, they'll come back in.
And, you said no one will vote to get rid of it. Look at the states where Republican governors have blocked it and not allowed it to come into their state, who consequently have all these people who don't have health coverage now. So,
But isn't that short-sighted? Because they do have health coverage. If they're sick, they go to the emergency room. So these governors who say they're not going to cover these people, they're going to cover them. They have no choice.
well, to an extent, yeah.
They don't have the, to me, it's a quality of life.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait till you're sick as a dog
That's right.
before I cover you, but I'm going to cover you.
Well, it's going to be really just responding to crisis, not coverage, not regular
Right.
coverage.
It's chronic. It's
Only
when I get
someone
pneumonia.
is really sick
Yeah.
will they get
When
covered.
I get pneumonia and I show up at the door, you'll
Yep.
cover me in the emergency room at 10 times the cost that it would have been if I could have
right.
gotten treatment when I had the sniffles.
One of the problems is that this country that we live in, with an enormous GNP, and we spend very little of it compared to other countries, we should be considering health care not as a necessity or a privilege, but it's a right. It's a right. And part of the problem is that if you want to hurt the country, you leave people alone. Most of the bankruptcies, most of the problems, most of the money that's lost is because someone gets sick, and none of these things are preventable. There are accidents, there are illnesses. You have to do something. This is a great start.
But see, to me, you're never going to turn it back. I mean,
No.
we've got
No, you're
90-some
right.
percent
You're right.
Yes.
today.
Yes.
Who is going to say, let the kids suffer? Illegal, legal, I'm sorry, sick is sick.
Yeah.
And I don't know one healthcare provider, one doctor that would turn around and say, Visa, please? That's like asking Bill Toohey, if you got a fire, he's going to ask you for your MasterCard before he rolls his engine? Yeah, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's going to do what his passion is get out there, save lives, and if it costs a little more, oh, I'm sorry, Lou, we're running out of water. We need another $10 from your MasterCard.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. So, when people do these absolutes, I will do this, it will happen. I laugh.
And by the way, in terms of the cost, we have not been able, over all these years, ever to come up with a really good way to prevent costs from continuing to rise. We've tried things, we've slowed the rising costs sometimes we haven't, but we've never been able to control it. And the big question is, do we care enough about our people so that we're still going to care for them regardless of the fact that costs are going to continue to rise. And we do, and that's where Obamacare
Going
came
to
from.
rise to a tipping point where we're going to be forced, in my opinion, to figure out how to make the system more efficient. 'Cause
No
it
one has
can't
been
keep-
able to yet.
But Louis, it can't keep
We've
going
done
up
it all.
8,
We've got a new
10%.
thing now, a new system that we're trying. We're trying to have the patient's all her needs, all the needs of the patient
Yeah.
cared for. We're hoping that's going to be a less expensive way. It might be a somewhat less expensive way, but it's not going to be less
When you
expensive
have
enough.
medical costs going up 3-4 times inflation, you can project out the line where eventually
That's right.
it crosses and
Yep.
you say,
Yep.
cannot continue.
Yep.
But saying we're not going to provide medical care, I mean, let's face it, there's no dark hair in this studio tonight.
No.
We're all getting near that point where, if we're not already there, where we're going to be taking out more than we're putting in to the medical system. And the idea was, for how many decades we paid in,
Yep. Yep.
because, you know, my daughter goes to the doctor, oh yeah, I should go this year.
Yeah.
You know, not too many blue hairs or white hairs can say, oh yeah, I didn't go this year.
That's true.
You venture an opinion on the local election?
Well, I think that Brian has done a very substantial job for all these years as selectman, and I think that will be rewarded in his quest for the representative seat. I think he'll serve well.
I think it'd be hard. I mean, when you look at the elections that, the one we just came out of for selectmen,
Yeah.
I thought it was a lot tighter till it went negative. You know, the John Marie thing, I thought it was a lot tighter till it went negative.
Yep.
And it seems, I mean, you got more experience statewide, but locally, I don't think people respond well when you know the person.
Because they know that's right. Because
You know, I mean-
they know the people.
John's a bum.
Yeah.
Well, no, he isn't. I grew
Yeah.
up with him. He's a nice enough guy.
Yeah.
So when you get these turd grenades
Yeah.
thrown in from people who aren't from Milford or aren't from whatever area you are,
Yeah.
I think instinctually we go negative on that.
And I'm fond of saying that Tip O'Neill, who was terrific, once said that all politics is
Still local.
local, was wrong. It's personal. And when you get to this level with Milford, it's one-on-one. You know these people. You've done everything. You've probably socialized with them. You've met with them. You've been here and there all your life with these people. When the negatives come out, it just doesn't.
Yeah,
It
but
just
you know,
doesn't
you look
play
back
well.
at Tip O'Neill, and I long for the days of O'Neill Reagan. You know, there were two people that, I don't know if you could get more diametrically opposed to their political views.
Yeah.
Yeah,
their
but they
approach was the same.
respected.
Yeah.
They respected
Yeah.
each other.
Johnson and Goldwater used to campaign together.
Yep.
You know, and that I can understand. I mean, I know, left to my own desires, I would be too physically conservative. I wouldn't spend enough money. I'd always want to tuck some away. It's just who I am, and I'll admit it.
Well, that's why the Milford Finance Committee is the gold standard.
Yeah,
as
but
they
it's
say.
the gold standard because we got people who are absolute opposite of me. I'm on this side saying, I'm worried, save money. You know, it's like we know the high school needs to be done. I'm already annoying people when I say there's a school coming. They said, when? I said, 10 years.
Yeah.
Let's start now.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing we started with the Woodland.
Woodland. Yeah.
12 years later, because somebody back then thought we ought to be putting some pennies away, we do a $60 million school, and I mean 34 million of it was us, without using profanity. No 2.5 override, no debt exclusion. Those are bad words in my mind.
That's right. Yeah.
But when you say gold standard, I love having people, because sometimes I sit there and look at them like, where the heck did that come from?
Now, Woodland was 60 million, including the interest?
61, no. No. I mean, when you buy your house for 300, they don't really tell you it's going to cost you 850 over 3 years. No, it was 61 million. we paid, or actually it's going to come a couple million under. Aldo and Jonathan really rode herd on that, so they won't admit it yet.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan and Aldo will predict the lottery from yesterday. You know, you can always ask them, what's the lottery number? You mean the one yesterday? No, I want today's. Yeah, wait till tomorrow. So they're going to come in a couple $1 million under the budget. So, it'll be around 60. What I'm proudest of is that our piece, we did out of our own operational budget. We didn't have to go back. A couple towns around us, one of them, after you pay your increase, here's another $500 donation we'd like you to make.
Yeah.
Gulp. We have to be careful because the people who built Milford, a lot of them now are living on Social Security.
That's right.
And, $1,500, $1,800 a month.
Or less.
Or, God, I'm amazed at how they can do that. But I can't forget that if they didn't build this town, we wouldn't be sitting here in a studio being able to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got to watch it. I am happy so far. I haven't heard anything negative. I did a show with Brian. I did a show with Sandra. And they talked about them and what they wanted and what they believed in. I was really happy not to see it go down in the muck.
I think it'll stay that way. Knowing, I don't know Sandra quite as well, obviously, but what I know of the Biagetti family, they're one of the top families in the area. So I think it will stay that way.
And that's a good thing. I mean, I really do. I mean, it's going to be hard. You've got somebody from the biggest town in the district. You actually got what? You've got Milford, Hopedale, Mendon,
Medway.
and one street.
One precinct.
Yeah, one precinct. Yeah. One little slice.
Yeah.
I kept joking, saying,
Yeah.
can we give away a street in Milford? I'd like to have 2 reps advocating for us. If all we had to do is trade away a street.
We used to
used
have
to.
them.
Because John said, I can't advocate for part of Medway.
Yeah.
He and Jeff Roy had to advocate for the whole town. I said,
Yeah.
okay, what street don't we like? We'll give it to somebody. Do you see anything that will change the election coming up?
No, I personally think it's going to be a quiet election. At the local level, I don't see too much that's going to make it problematic. I think it will be a relatively quiet time.
Well, the last election we had in town, I thought was going along pretty clean, pretty nice. And then the blackmailers came in. That mail. But when Ryan, Fat Man, ran, I mean, being quiet and shy, when he came on, I said, okay, I had fecal matter put into my mailbox. Did you have anything to do with it? Because it was these silly ads harpooning John Fernandez and Dick Moore.
Oh, yes, yes.
To me, that was pure fecal matter. I don't want somebody from out of this area telling me.
Well, there was a group that threw a lot of money into that, and I haven't seen that group is getting involved in this. If they do, then things could change. But otherwise, if it's local people with local money, I don't think you'll see it.
I mean, that's the point, though. When a foreign group, foreign from Framingham
Yeah.
or beyond, but when a non-area, non-Milford, non-Mendon group gets involved, if they try and bring in the negative national politics, my gut feeling is it works against them.
It doesn't work because people know, we know each other. That's the whole thing. That's what I meant when I said that, the vast majority of both House and Senate members happen to be are Democrats. But at the state level, we elect both Democrats and Republicans in different times, depending upon what we know of them. One is much more personal than the other.
Well, it seems like the 12 Republicans moved to the Blackstone Valley. Because when I look across,
Yeah.
I remember going into the House once and I asked John, I said, what's that little list? Are those like people that got called to the principal's office? Because it's got this whole list of reps, and then there's a few on the back end. He goes, oh no, those are the Republicans.
That's right, yeah.
You know, and I think the Senate has what, 6 or?
The Senate has 6. When I was there, they had 7. Then, in 1990, that was the year that it was the word for everyone was vote for anyone but the incumbents, no matter who they are. And we went from 7 to 15 Republicans for one term. And then in 1992, after people in the districts got to know who these people were, that basically all they were was beginners.
Yeah.
They were there just to shoot
Well,
people
it's always
down.
easy to say you could have done better.
Yeah.
It's like a Scott Brown redux. You
Yeah.
know, the same
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you know, the people who are againers don't seem to last long term.
No.
No.
Whether Democrat or Republican, you know, people who run on the campaign that you suck, but I suck less,
Yeah.
so vote for me.
Yeah.
Well, eventually somebody comes in and says, well, I don't suck at all.
You know, I think when you look at Milford, and we tend to think that the whole district revolves around us because we're the biggest town. But when Richard Moore was senator, even though he lived in Uxbridge, he was always around.
Yeah, he
we
was
saw
al-
him everywhere. I haven't seen Ryan Fatman until his big smile shook a hand somewhere. And I haven't seen or heard from him. I don't know. I guess he's still around, but you know,
I think
haven't
he's around.
seen
I've seen him at the symphony and such. You know, so that he is around. I don't know to the degree he's around.
And I don't know beyond what is available to every senator. I don't know what else he has done, what he's brought into town, what he's
It's a
facilitated.
question when he comes on. I mean, he's got 14 towns, so I don't know how,
Yeah.
like Dick Moore was so visible in Milford
Yeah.
when he had 14 towns.
Yeah.
You know what it's like.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
At one point, I had 17.
17. So,
See, to me, it's very
We managed
simple.
to do
We
it.
know there's 28,000 people who know Milford is the center of the universe. There's 6 billion who need to be educated. Last question. How do you think Milford will go in the presidential election?
Hillary Clinton.
By how much?
I would guess 54-44.
And that's amazing. In a blue state like Massachusetts, 10%. But it gets back to John saying 10% is really 2 to 1
That's all you need.
because you got 10 out of 20.
Yeah.
The last presidential election, this entire senatorial district, with the exception of Southbridge,
Yeah.
was red.
Yeah.
And I mean deep red, not purple, red.
Well, it'll be interesting.
John Fernandez is the last Democrat standing in the whole district.
Oh, God. Hard to believe. But as always, I'll never ask you to vote for any candidate. Not our place. That's why we have guests who can ask you. But I will beg you, learn about the candidates and get out and vote for one that you think will best serve you. Red, blue, or you can be like me, purple, because nobody will take me. Vote for the person who you trust the most to serve your interests. But get out and vote, because that's the most important thing. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless, good night, and may tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.